So, welcome to the Michelle Chalfant Show, Catherine Plano.
Hello, thank you for having me on your show. I'm thinking it's going to be an amazing conversation. Just picking up on your energy, Michelle.
I was feeling that too. We were vibing before when it was, what time did you jump on with me? At
Oh,
5:50
oh,
a.m.
yes,
Thank you so much. And where are you in Australia? You said Melbourne?
I am currently based in Melbourne.
Okay. Well, gosh, Catherine, thank you. Because even what we've already been chit-chatting about, I'm like, this is going to be an amazing show. We have a lot to talk about. So you and I have a lot in common. Why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, and then we're going to jump into a lot of these hot topics we've just been talking about.
Who am I? Well, I think I could start with I'm Catherine Plano, but I'm not really Catherine Plano. I'm more than the Catherine Plano, right? It's just a vehicle.
Hmm.
But maybe just to tell you a little bit about myself, I was born in France, came to Australia when I was 7. I've always been intrigued with more than the now. So I've
Hmm.
always known there is more. And I think before you and I came on the show, I was explaining to you that I was on a quest to find out, who am I? That was my biggest question to myself. Who am I? And I did that for probably up to my mid 20s, 28 or so. And then I then went into the corporate world. So this is back when the internet started. When it first started, I was curious to go, wow, how do we communicate from one place to another, which was really blowing my mind. And I'm very much an early adopter. So for me, it was then I got into the corporate world, which was completely different to really what was truly resonating within myself is all the stuff that you and I were talking about, which was back then was considered woo-woo, but now it's quantum physics. It's a real science to what this is. So I really got involved into numerology, astrology, Seiki, Reiki, you name it. I did it all. And at the same time as then I was living like a double life. And then I got into the corporate world. And now I think this is the right time. I think people are more accepting of this information. And I've found a beautiful way to blend both worlds and be authentic and genuine without worrying about what are people going to think of me? What are they going to say about me if I talk about energy or if I talk about numbers or numerology or astrology? So here I am. I'm no longer seeking in the sense that I think we're always looking outside of ourselves. We're always looking away from ourselves.
Hmm.
And so for me is more turning within myself and seeking within myself because everything that we search or seek is within ourselves. So that quest is more of an internal quest now, even more so as I've matured.
That is such an important point. You know, when we're uncomfortable or not happy with our lives, we tend to go, what I always say, we're out there looking outside of self, going, well, maybe my happiness is out there. Maybe I need to do this. Maybe I need to join this. Maybe I need to make this much money. Maybe I need to find the perfect partner. And gosh, I remember just in my own, I've been a therapist and a coach for like 20 some years. And I don't see clients one on one anymore, but when I did, I worked with a lot of people that had, if you looked at them from the outside in, they had everything. And they were coming to me, letting me know they were lost. They were, some of them depressed. And they said, I just don't even know who I am. And they had it. I mean, they had families, they had boats, cars, money, well, you know, the whole thing. And I realize it seems like now in our world, would you agree? Because I know you're in Australia, but still, I know you work with people all around the world. As a globally, we're starting to realize the answers are not out there. We really do hold the keys to our happiness and understanding who we are.
Oh, 100%. I think, I mean, for me, I see it all the time and every day. We are constantly, even including myself, I think I was explained to you that we teach what we must learn. I
Mhm.
think I catch myself out all the time. I think that we are always looking external because we've been conditioned to look external. We have forgotten who we are.
Mhm.
And we have come here to remember who we are and to experience life. And I
Yeah.
think that we are always looking outside. And instead of looking external of ourselves, if we look at, I always say, think about what area of your life is not working And because your external world is a reflection of your internal world. And so when we see things outside that are not working, instead of trying to fix the person or the job or the relationship, it takes a lot more courage to be accountable. Go, what is it that I'm doing? What is it that I'm projecting to create this or manifest this or attract this into my life? So we are always looking external.
Such a good point. Your external reality is really reflecting simply what's going on already inside of you. And again, as I say that, it's never an invitation to sit and judge or blame yourself, but it is an invitation to get really curious about, hey, what is going on inside of me? Hold on a second. Like, hold on, what's happening? How would you guide someone to do that? So if someone's listening right now and they're like, wait a minute, are you telling me, Catherine Plano, that my bad relationship or the fact that I keep getting fired in my jobs or I can't find a job or whatever is going on in my life, you're telling me that's because of something that I'm doing or I'm believing in? What do you say to that? How would you guide someone if they said that to you?
Yeah, good question. Thank you. I've got a story actually that just popped to mind when you asked me that question. So there was a gentleman, and I've shared this story many times. He doesn't mind that I share this story. He was really frustrated. He had broken his arm, and then he was told that he was going to stay in this plaster or this contraction that he had in his arm for 6 months. And when we were going through our sessions together, he was just blaming everybody and everything because of this situation. And I asked him, what question did you ask yourself to receive your broken arm as the answer? And he looked at me and he said, well, I don't even know how to answer that. And I said, maybe you don't know how to answer that right now, but maybe sit with it and see. And so our next session, he said, you know what? I thought about it. And all I asked was I needed a break from work. I needed a good 6 months break from work because we always get what we ask for. And so the moment you ask yourself, what question did I ask to receive this? And even me, just the other day, I said, what am I, so how is it that, because we're always co-creating, we are the creator. And so with every situation, we are co-creating. And I asked myself, what is it that I asked for me to create these conversations that trigger me? And I realized that it's because I hadn't done the healing, that there was still stuff that I needed to lean into and unpack.
Yeah. That's such a powerful statement. I am the creator. It's hard for people to really let that land. Talk a little bit more about what that even means.
It's so much more empowering. It's so much more empowering to say I created the situation rather than blaming the person or, you know, whatever that may be. I can look at my timeline and have a look at it. We look at patterns. We all have patterns. But when we pause and have a look at our patterns, have a look at your pattern. What is that reoccurring pattern in your life? Now, the common denominator is you. It's not the other person, right? So it could be, let's say, failed relationships, right? And then it's easier to say, well, it's that person, they did this. And, you know, you can live in blame for as long as you like, but there will be, what happens is you get stuck in a loop of these stories, these narratives that are playing out. But when you say, what have I done to create this, right? And it could be as simple as I had a belief that, excuse me, I hope this doesn't come across wrong, but I had a belief that all men were liars. And just the belief that I had a belief that all men were liars, I was projecting that into my reality, right? And then what was happening is because as a creator, we have either high vibrational frequency or low vibrational frequency. You would know this if you do shadow work. You're either in the light or the shadow. It's the same thing, right? Yeah. So when we're at the highest vibrational frequency, we are the creator. And when we are the creator, we are saying to ourselves, what is it that I'm projecting within myself that is manifesting this relationship? And it could be as simple as, I didn't trust myself. And therefore, that is why I didn't trust
Mm.
or the partner, whatever that may be. And so then the work, that's where the deep work starts happening, because we are co-creating all the time. I mean, they're projecting their, can I say shit?
Yes, you can say it. Go, girl.
They're projecting their shit into their reality. I'm projecting my shit. And so there's always like, it's almost like a cooking, you're cooking up a bit of a soup together. But the
Hmm.
moment you take the accountability and say, I created this in
Yeah.
this co-creation, it's amazing. It's profound, because then you realize that, wow, it's the stuff that I need to work on first. It's that famous saying, you need to love yourself first before you can truly love another.
Yeah. How do we find our stuff? How do you direct people to do that?
Oh, easy. Our stuff is the patterns, these
Yeah.
reoccurring patterns.
Yeah.
And so, and the thing is, we are living on autopilot. Depends on the research you look into. We are using only either 5% of our conscious or 3% in some research of our conscious mind. So you can see that the rest of the consciousness, the subconscious and the unconscious, is on autopilot 95, 98% of the day. So we are these walking, talking pattern machines,
Mm.
and repeating these patterns over and over again. When we pause, stop, and be present, which is really hard because we are, constantly in the doing. But when we are in the being, because we are human being, not human having, but when we are in the present moment and actually go, oh, what's this trigger? Oh, this is a reoccurring pattern. Then you can see that that's your stuff coming up. That's when your shit comes up,
Yeah.
is when you identify these patterns. Hang on a minute, this has happened. This is like the eighth relationship this has happened to. So
Yeah.
it's a pattern. It's the patterns we look for.
Something I say all the time that I think you'll really agree with and love is that triggers are a gift. Because
Yes.
when we're triggered, it's a way to really look at that unconscious belief and program pattern that's rising up for us. But most of the
Mm,
time, we humans will get triggered and we go after the person that triggered us instead of saying to ourselves, hold on a second, what is that thing that's coming up again for me? And when we look at it like that, we have a shift in our perspective of it. When we say, wow, what is this? Is this true for me? We work with that trigger, that program and pattern, poof, it shifts.
yes.
It's gone.
Yeah.
So I love it.
Can
Something
I
that,
just share
yeah,
something
go,
with,
go. Yeah.
sorry, you did this with your hand, and quite often we talk about parts. We have multiple parts within ourselves.
Yeah.
And when you get triggered, if you pull that part out, what is that? Because you were doing this with your hand.
Yeah.
What is that part um, uh, uh, wanting to say to you, right? And a lot of the times these triggers are wounds that haven't been healed.
Yeah.
They could also be unmet needs.
Mhm.
So it's interesting when you start getting triggers, pull them out as parts, because we have multiple triggers. But when you pull it out, it's like, imagine you're pulling out the weeds in
Mhm.
your garden, right? So you're pulling out this part into your hand. When you pull it out, you can actually then contextualize it, and it's really just a thought form or an entity, depends on how long the narrative has been living for. But you can really, really bring it to life and understand its purpose. And most of the time, when you understand its purpose, you can work with it and heal it and transmute it.
Mm. We do a lot of parts work in the adult chair, so you're speaking my language. I love it. I love it. Talk about some of these psychological archetypes. I know you work a lot with archetypes. So can you explain even what that means?
Sure. Psychological archetypes are, it's really simple. They're just behavior, well, they're universal patterns. So remember, of behavior, thoughts, and emotions. So they're just patterns. And so they very much perceive how we see or how we interact with the world. And we give birth to them. We give birth to them. So this is really important for us to understand. We give birth to them for a purpose. It could be to protect us. It could be to keep us safe, whatever that may be, the purpose. But the beautiful thing is, once we bring awareness, we can understand their purpose and the
Mm.
reason of being.
So is an archetype, would you say, you said a pattern or a part, or is it different? Same
It's a
thing?
pattern. It's a
Yeah.
pattern. So a
Yeah.
pattern would be people pleasing.
Yeah.
A pattern
Yeah.
could be inner critic, those kind of things.
How do you work then with these archetypes? How do you help to overcome them?
So first of all, what we need to do is and you might be doing the same thing with the adult chair, is we separate them, because a lot of the times we're so involved with these archetypes, and it
Yeah.
depends on how long they have been with us. They might be with us for 30 years
Yeah.
or 50 years, whatever that may be. So sometimes individuals find it really hard to even connect with it. So what we do is whatever that may be, let's say an inner critic, whatever that may be, right? We just say, if you pop the inner critic beside you and you gave it a name, because what we want to do is personify the archetype. So if you gave it a name, what would the name be? And you could say Bob, right? And then if it had a voice, what would that voice sound like? Well, it sounds like my mother. Okay. And then, if it had clothes. So what you're creating is a little bit of space between you and this archetype.
Mm.
And once you do, then you can say, what is your purpose? Really understanding what is your purpose? What are you here to protect me from? And it's probably like the chair, where you're having a
Mhm.
dialogue with
Mhm. Yep.
this archetype to understand its purpose. And that is how we bring awareness to it, is we shine light on the archetype. All of our psychological archetypes are part of our shadow aspects. They live in that deeper part of our subconscious mind.
What do you think the main archetypes that we humans have? Like, what are the top three that all humans have?
Oh, it's a good one. The ones that come up the most, I would say the inner critic,
Yeah.
the inner critic, the people pleaser, are
Hmm.
pretty, and I would say the imposter, because I do a lot of corporate. The imposter is a big one. I still go through it myself. I have to admit, with the imposter, I always, and I have had, even though I've worked on it for a very long time, the imposter is, oh my gosh, they're going to find out who I truly am.
Hmm.
And then what? They are not going to accept me. They are not going to love me, whatever that may be. So I always say those three: the inner critic, the people pleaser, and the imposter are the three main ones.
What is your opinion on this? Like, where do they come from? How old are we when they form? Like, how do they, what happens inside of us that we've informed these archetypes?
So it depends on, I mean, all of them start at a very young age, right? So through our development phase, let's say right from the age of the time we were born right up to the age of 7, this is
Hmm.
our imprinting phase. So whatever took place in your environment, so parenting, programming, by the way, let's not blame our parents. They did the best they could with the information they had, right?
Totally.
But anything that you experienced at that age, we basically downloaded that information as our reality. So it's an imprint, our map.
Hmm.
And that is that first phase. The second phase is from 7 to 14. And
Hmm.
so this is what we call modeling. So basically what took place is, at that age, is we start, who am I? What's my identity? And we start looking external of ourselves. And most parents would love this, because they'll see that we've all experienced this, by the way, these development phases. And so what happens is then our identity comes in, and then you might look up to a teacher or even a parent or even a pop star, Taylor Swift, and then you might start dressing like her and acting like her, and that becomes your identity. And then from 14 to 21, this is what we go through our socialization. So this is, where do I fit in society? A lot of the times, and this is what we call our rebellious years. Right.
Hmm.
So a lot of the times what happens is we push away what's been imposed onto us, and we say, where do I fit in the world, in society? And so these archetypes most of the time come in our imprinting phase, that very first time, that when from from the time we were born up to the age of 7. So it depends if you had a parent that always, what are you doing? You shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be talking like that. You shouldn't be dancing. You shouldn't be saying this, whatever that may be. But the other thing too is that next phase is, and that's that unconscious part of your mind. Then you move into that subconscious, which is more of the limbic part of our brain, the emotional part of our brain. And this is where we want to fit in the identity. So a lot of the times we pick up patterns from others. So
Mm.
this is that next level of, whether it's people pleasing. Well, people pleasing could be as simple as, I know that if I want to be approved, then I need to be of service to others because they will accept me if I do things for them. But at what cost? Because then I'll be depleted. But you can see that these patterns take place over time, but more in our very younger years. Yeah.
Mm. I think it's so important that people know and understand that most humans have an inner critic. So I remember doing a podcast years ago on the imposter syndrome, and the percentage of humans that experience that was like in the 90s, I think, or 80s, 80% of humans. I was like, oh my gosh, here I thought it was just me, me and like five other people. And it's so many of us. So if I'm someone that says, okay, I've got this inner critic, how do I work with that? Or I do feel the imposter, or I do feel self-sabotage or people pleasing. Like what would be some steps that people can take to start working with these parts or these archetypes?
So first of all, I always say is once you be, I mean, awareness is key, absolutely,
Mm-hmm.
but to normalize it. Like
Yeah.
you can't kill your inner critic, you can't drown it, and you can't strangle it. The only way is integration. That's how you work with it. So the awareness is really key. So the first thing is to identify your patterns. That's the first thing. So
Mm-hmm.
have a look at your reoccurring patterns, and they're going to be different patterns. So the and this goes back to astro coaching, which is working with the
Yeah.
wheel. What we do is there's many aspects of your life which links in with astrology. So you can work in this, basically it's a wheel, right, with 12 slices like a pie. And then what you're doing is every section of your life. So it could be identity, it could be career, it could be communication, it could be relationship, it could be money, it could be whatever that may be. In each area, what you do is you say to yourself, well, how satisfied am I in this area? Okay. And you could be like, well, when it comes to relationship, maybe I'm a 3 out of 10. It's out of 10, right? And you
Mm-hmm.
go around the wheel, right? So then you're asking yourself, well, how satisfied? And then you go, well, how important is it to me? And so just asking yourself, well, how important? Then what we do is have a look at the gap. And that is how we find these patterns. Right. So then
Mm-hmm.
we go, okay, there's the gap. So what is the gap? So we look at the pattern within that area of your life. So let's say if it's money. Okay, I'm just going to use this as an example. So let's say I'm not satisfied with money, but it's really important to me, and then I've got a massive gap. Right. Let's say I rated a 3 and it's important. It's a 10. So that's a pretty big gap.
Mm-hmm.
So then we look at, okay, so what's the pattern within money? Well, when you look at the pattern, well, the pattern is that every time I receive money, I give it away. And then we look at, well, what's underneath that? Because the thing is, there is a theme, which is the pattern, but underneath that, what is driving the pattern? So these are the psychological archetype that we talk about. And it
Mm.
could be self-worth. I'm not worthy of having this money. And it could be as simple as I grew up and saw my parents argue over money all the time. We came into a country in 1972, new beginning. They didn't have to speak the language. They did. It was really tough. So for me, I give my money away all the time. I'm actually talking through experience, by the way. And so
Mm.
once you identify it, identify what the pattern is, what's the belief that's driving the pattern, which is a psychological archetype, and where does it come from? You can go right into it as deep as you like. Then it's like, okay, then you can change it. You can be more compassionate towards yourself and go, well, these patterns no longer serve me. And you could rewrite your patterns and
Mm-hmm.
rewrite your programs. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it really does. We do similar work, so I was curious to see how you do it. But it seems that to me, and it seems like it's just easier and easier as time goes on to really discover our core beliefs and bring them up. And just identifying them, like you're saying, oftentimes is all that we need. But then, of course, you can go deeper with them and say, wow, wait, is this even true anymore? Is it true that like your money belief, let's say, or is it true that I have to please everybody and I have to put myself last? No, that was true maybe when I was growing up because my parents were alcoholics or my parents got a divorce and I was afraid they were going to leave, whatever our core belief is. But are you finding that it's becoming easier and easier because of the energy on the planet and because of so many other things and people are waking up and more conscious that, gosh, these beliefs are shifting faster than ever? Do you find that?
100%. I just got
Yeah.
goosebumps. So 100%, because I feel that from a level, there's definitely an awakening taking place.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's, I mean, I don't watch the news and I don't read the
Same.
news. I don't follow the news because I'm too sensitive and
Same.
I have too much anxiety when I watch it
Same.
because I want to help everybody and I just can't. But absolutely, I find that there is an awakening and an opening that's taking place for all of us.
Hmm.
And then, but are we listening to what's happening? Are we listening to the opening? Are we listening to the opening? The awareness is taking place. The truth is taking place because we are three things: love, truth, and light.
Mm.
And when we understand the I am statement, I am is who we truly are, that's where we find our belief systems. I am not worthy. I am not good enough. I am not smart enough. When you can connect with the shadow aspect of your I am statement, that is where the deep work starts. So absolutely, collectively, there's an awakening taking place,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. It's powerful. So you keep mentioning shadow. I love shadow work. Talk about how you do shadow work with people. And you kind of touched on it. Is there anything else you want to add to that? And I love the astro coaching that you do, the astrology with psychology coaching. Pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So shadow is basically parts of ourselves that we've suppressed or denied, or traits that we judge as unacceptable or unsafe for us to express. That's
Mhm.
it. So it's like they sit in, just say in the cupboard, we push them in a cupboard, shut the
Yeah.
doors, lock it away. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So for us, the shadow work is the deep work. And it's funny because my sister said, don't you think you should just give up the shadow work? You've been doing it for too long. And I said, you're never done. That's the thing. You're never done.
No.
Because when you do one layer, and quite often I hear my clients say to me, Catherine, I thought I was done with this stuff. And I'm no, the stuff is coming up because your unconscious mind is saying that you are ready to integrate it, or you are ready to work with it or unpack it.
Hmm.
But there's immense power in and wisdom working with the shadow. And I think that when we embrace our shadow aspects, and it's about the whole integration part, we dissolve all inner conflict. We I think that what truly happens, and you talked about this, is transformation. Not just transformation, but we transmute the shadow into light,
Mm.
which is very, very powerful. And so there's a lot of, like, think about this. I always look at the shadow this way. If you look at in a diamond, you find a diamond in the mud. Well, look at the
Hmm.
shadows. You need to go through the mud to find the gift, the diamond.
Hmm.
It's like looking into the sky at nighttime and seeing the stars. You need to be in the dark to see the sprinkly, sparkly stars. So shadow work is not scary. Every time I talk about shadow work, people go, "Oh, it's like, there's so much resistance to it, you know."
Yeah.
But I think that we in the work that we do, there's three principles: non-judgment,
Mhm.
non-resistance, and non-attachment. And these three are really hard. I'm still
Mhm.
practicing them, by the way, Michelle. They're hard to live by because you trying to live one day without judgment. You can't help it.
Yeah.
Oh, she's got beautiful hair. Oh, she's got good. We are constantly judging. But what is that? And practicing non-judgment, because even like you've got beautiful hair, that's you projecting because you inside, we were talking about our hair before we come in the show, so let's use this as an example. By me saying you've got beautiful hair and you've got, and vice versa, basically I'm saying I don't have nice hair, so I'm projecting. So sometimes our shadow, we're projecting the thing that we also need to integrate and embrace and accept and love without judgment.
Mm-hmm. That's so powerful. That's a great example too.
Yeah.
The other thing we were talking about is before the show started, which I said, oh my gosh, we got to hit record. Let's talk about this on air. It's so good. You were talking about the process that you went through when you had one podcast and then you decided to shift the name of your podcast. Would you break that down and talk about what happened within yourself and the gift or gifts that you found along the path or along the journey of doing that? Because that was really powerful, really powerful.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. So that started off. So we had a podcast, I Am One Project, for years, and then my team said, "Look, let's move it into because we had a lot of men reaching out to come on the show, and they said, let's just turn it into the Catherine Plano podcast show." And I had so much resistance to it, and I sat with it. It was, I would say, 12 months before I actually said, yes, let's do it. I did this with my website. When we had a business, we had a business website, and then to go to my personal website, I had the same resistance. And so when I sat with this resistance, the resistance was, I was afraid of being seen. That was simple. I just didn't want to be seen, because I then thought, people are going to think I'm egotistic. People are going to think I'm full of myself. People are going to judge me. People are going to, all of these things. I made all these stories up about what would take place. I had no evidence, by the way. And that's the thing is, that's a great question, is what evidence do you have when you listen to your inner narratives? A lot of the times we don't have evidence. I had no evidence at all. But there was so much judgment about having my name up there on a billboard. And so for me, it was like, well, why was I afraid to be seen? Why was I afraid? Because I felt safe staying small. So, and I was always hiding behind another name or another website. And it was always this whole protective thing, this wall, this invisible wall that I had between me and another brand, let's say. And once again, it goes down when I went into the work. It's because I was bullied at school. So because when I came to Australia, I couldn't speak English. And so standing up in the class, I always made, show and tell. You come to school with show and tell. But kids would make fun of me. So, when we understand why we do what we do and we go deep, then it was like, that's an old story. That doesn't serve me. I'm no longer a child. I'm an adult. Yeah. And so letting go of that resistance, letting go of that judgment, letting go of the attachment, I was able to stand in my truth, my light and love, because I was doing it from my heart. I wasn't doing it for me. That's ego. I was doing it for other people because I wanted to make a difference. And so that changed the whole narrative as well.
And then you were able to put out your podcast with your name and your website, and it was comfortable for you instead of resistant. That's what I think we have to remember, is that all of these archetypes, patterns, programs, they're created in childhood. And when we discover what they are and work with and through them, life becomes easier. Like the resistance, it's like the walls, the barriers, the speed bumps start to fade, and we can truly step more into ourselves. You didn't talk about your book that came from that experience too. Isn't that where you said your book came from?
Yes.
See, I look at all the blessings or the beauty that came from you saying, I'm going to change the body, or whoever it was, you or someone else that said, you got to change the name of the podcast to the name Catherine Plano Show and the website, and you had resistance, but then you chose to look at that. You chose to do a deep dive into your stuff. And because of that, what happened next?
100%. So yes, thank you. It is true. It's shifts only happen when you own your shit. Did come from me owning my shit. to
Yeah.
stop making excuses, stop believing in my stories,
Yeah.
start being aware of, and see, and this is very external focus, right? Because
Hmm.
then instead of like being internal focus and go, well, why, what is your why? What's the
Yeah.
purpose of this show? And it was to, if, you know, we were talking about, if I could help one person shift their mindset, or one person dissolve psychological archetype, whatever that may be, then I feel like I'm on purpose. And so it changed. And I mean, it takes a lot of accountability too, right?
Hmm.
It's easier to externalize. It's easier to say, give reason or excuses, because, you know, that goes back to cause and effect, right?
Hmm.
So we're constantly projecting our, you know, like our limiting beliefs, right? We're constantly finding reason. Well, did you see? And the universe is amazing. This is how we co-create, right, with the universe. So being the creator, that when we're projecting, the universe will show us, give us evidence. You know, it's interesting, the things that I've learnt over the years, that we are, going back to the create, we are always 100% manifesting, 100% projecting. And if we stay still long enough to see our projections, it's amazing. I was saying this just the other day, which links into you know, into being accountable. Shifts only happen when you own your shit.
Hmm.
The other day was a friend of mine was talking about, you know, I just can't seem to find the right relationship. Right. And so, well, what do you value in a relationship? And they went through their values, you know, somebody that's, you know, aligned with my belief system, you know, empathetic, caring, all of those things. Right. And I was like, well, it's great. So what happens is you've put that out, you've put the call out to
Hmm.
the universe. This is how it works. And then what happens is all of a sudden you meet another person, but it doesn't tick all the boxes, but you go, they'll do. And the universe goes, oh, okay. So we'll hold off this parcel right now, because obviously this is, because the universe will always deliver what you want. But are we going to accept what is being put in front of us all the time? Because
Hmm.
this is the other thing. This is, it's so easier for us to say yes, especially if you're a people pleaser. I'm a recovering people pleaser, rather than no. Oh, yes, I want to help, or yes, I want to be part of this, or yes, I want to do that for you, instead of saying no. So the thing is, we are constantly manifesting, but there's going to be like people getting in the way, road bumps. It's like when you're in a car and you're going on a trip, you will see a tree might get in the way, or an animal might cross the road. But what do? Do we stop? Do we, you know, entertain that tree or entertain that animal? And we, you know, and then we're taking ourselves completely off the path. And then we might end up going somewhere else because of that specific, that's probably not a really good analogy, by the way, you know, a specific event. So events will always come in our way. But
Hmm.
are we prepared to say this is not right for us and move them out the way so we clear our path, because we've already put the calling out and the call is coming to us?
Mm. I think it's hard for us as humans to witness our stories. We get confused and we think that the story that we're hearing inside of our head is truth, and we cling and buy into it and hold on to it, right? How do you help people to not cling to that story that they're telling themselves? Like, you're not good enough, or you shouldn't do that. No one will ever love you. Just settle for this person. Da, 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 da. Just take that job. Stay where you are. You're fine. You know, all those things.
Great question. We actually do, there's a workshop that I facilitate, and there's basically, you do a life audit, and it's every
Hmm.
7 years. So what happened in the first 7 years, the second, and you go right through to the every 7 year. And then you go towards, you have a look at the patterns, right? And then we look at, if your life was a movie, what would be the title of your movie? And so
Hmm.
what we do, we're externalizing it. And then we're able to, because we are the director, we are the creator, we are the cast in the movie, we are the everything that you can imagine making a movie. We are all of
Hmm.
those. And so the way that we work with that is to externalize it, and we actually make fun have some fun with it. Because I think that as adults, we become so serious, too serious, by the way, and that we forgot fun. We forgot play, and this goes back to doing some inner child work. If your inner child was here with you right now, because, it's when you have a childlike approach with an inner critic, or, it's because children can externalize the inner critic, externalize like, no, I want this, or no, this is wrong, because they're they're standing in the truth, the light and love all the time. They do it from a place of love. So when we connect with our inner child, we can we make fun and play with the inner critic, with the people pleaser, with the imposter syndrome, with the procrastinator, whatever that may be. We can have fun with it. And then we can change the narrative, because then we realize that this narrative, a lot of the times, that even though you can have a timeline of your story, because everyone has a timeline, but then when we actually chunk it up to bring it into a story or a title, it loosens the boundaries of our narratives. And then we can work with it.
That's really, really good. Really good. Anything else you want to share around archetypes? I keep feeling like we got to talk about the self-sabotager, because so many of us do that. We just live with self-sabotage, as we may have opportunities right in front of us, yet we sabotage and we can't even get there because we're sabotaging ourselves. What do you do with the self-sabotager? Or when we're self-sabotaging, I should say that, or that part of that archetype.
Yeah, we all sabotage. We all, can I just wanted to go back to something that you said as well, is with these psychological archetype from a collective. So Carl Jung, he talks about collective consciousness. Yeah. We all can tap into these. That means that we can all experience all archetypes, even astrology. When you look at the rulers and the astrological archetypes, they all reside within us. So that's really important to understand, that we all have these archetypes and we all experience them. So understanding that, for example, the saboteur, for example, remember that these archetypes, when living in shadow, will only act out shadow, but they also have a light aspect in themselves. So it's about what's the gift in the saboteur. So it's important that we can turn those limiting beliefs into really empowering truths. So to a saboteur might reveal, for example, for me, okay, this is going back to me keeping this small. My saboteur was, what it revealed to me is that I was afraid of success because of the responsibilities of success. I'm going to be seen. I'm going to be putting myself out there. What about if I fail? What about if people judge me? All these stories, right? And so by working with the saboteur, we can reframe its fear as excitement, because the brain can't tell the difference between what is real and what is not real.
Yeah.
So it's the meaning we give every situation, by the way. There is no meaning. With every situation that takes place, there is no meaning. It's we that give it meaning. We can say it was exciting or it was scary. And so when we can start reframing these fears into excitement, because the thing is, what happens with the saboteur is when it's been, so going back to the fear of success for me, when I could actually say, okay, well, where do I feel this fear of success, right? As soon as I understood its gift, because it was trying to keep me safe. Remember, these archetypes are always trying to keep you safe and protect you in some way, shape, or form. So it was keeping me safe from making a mistake, fear of failure. So I didn't want to make a mistake. I didn't want to, but the fear of excitement, the fear of success is the fear of failure. I didn't want to make a mistake. And so understanding that these archetypes, that we gave birth to them, that once we start understanding their purpose, we can go in, like, especially when we connect with it within our body, because our body is our unconscious mind, right? So when I can say, well, where do I feel that in my body? I can feel it in my belly. And so that nervousness that I feel, I could say, well, that nervousness is actually excitement. Those butterflies is not fear, it's excitement. And so once I do that, it's I always, I share this to people, try being in a bad mood and skipping. Impossible. Because when you
Oh,
skip, right, you're moving your
it's so
body's going,
good.
hang on a minute, you're telling me that you're in a bad mood, that you got out of the wrong side of the bed today, but you're skipping. But that's if you're skipping and saying you're happy. So we can trick our mind with our body
Mm,
as
mm,
well. So
mhm.
understanding this, the saboteur, understanding the beautiful gift that it had for me, it was a massive lesson for me to then work with that, to actually little steps, right? It was little steps like putting my name on the podcast, putting my name on all of these things was me. It's not about, and how we integrate. It's not about, like I said, getting rid of the saboteurs. How do we work together?
Mhm.
I hear you. I'm grateful. I thank you for protecting me. I now understand your purpose. But how do we work together? And
Mm,
journaling's big for me too. Journaling
mhm.
massive.
Oh gosh, yes. I love that too. Wow. Okay. So much good stuff here. Is there anything else you want to share that we might have missed? I know we could go on and on and on.
Um, I don't think. I think we went pretty deep into it. I think that the psychological archetype. There's so many of them.
So many.
I will send a little link that if anyone wants to find out anything about
Yeah,
some of their
that was
psychological
my next
archetypes.
question. Yeah, tell me, where can people find you? I'm going to add this to the show notes.
So I'll get my team to send it to you. It's working with the Astro Life Blueprint, so that it can be personal for the person, for the
Hmm.
individual, because it's more empowering when you're working with an area of your life that's not working for you. So it's going back to that, how satisfied, how important it is for you, finding the gap,
Yeah.
working one area of your life, and then which psychological archetype is in its shadow, and then so we'll give you that as well.
Do you have a link that people can go to
Yeah,
check,
there'll be
check
a
what
link.
is it?
So the link at the moment is well, it's Catherine Plano. If you look up Catherine Plano, but
Okay.
the actual link itself it's AI generated, so it can personally, so it'll
Oh
be a link
wow.
that I will send you. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay. So, but your website is just catherineplano.com.
.com, yes, and you'll find about the astro coaching, which is the astrology and science together and psychology together.
Cool. And so what do you do? So you do one-on-one coaching, you do some group work. I know you have a coaching program. You got a lot going on. Tell us about
Yes.
what you do.
Sure. So so being in corporate as well, we have an academy. It's ICF level 2, because working with corporates, you have to have credentials,
Hmm.
and it's positive psychology. So it's based on positive psychology. And
Hmm.
then the astro coaching is actually a tool. So these are online tools that you actually work with your clients one on one. So yes, we do obviously group one on one, and it's profound. It's really amazing. I've had so many epiphanies myself working with it,
Hmm.
and I see it in our academy as well. So
Mm.
yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Well, we will add that to the show notes. Thank you so, so much for being on. It was a pleasure to meet you, and this was great. Thank you. Thank you for what you're doing
Thank
in
you.
the world.
Thank you so much, and thank you for what you're doing in the world. It's amazing work. Thank you.
Thank you.